The alarm sounded across the Galactic Council station at exactly 600 hours. Administrator Taven's three-fingered hand shook as he transmitted the emergency signal. His crystalline skin, normally a soft blue, had turned pale with fear. Behind him, the monitoring screens showed the horror unfolding on Valoria Prime. Black shapes moved across the southern continent like a spreading disease. The Krethic had arrived. Taven was small even for a Valen. He stood barely 4 feet tall and his bones were as delicate as glass. His people had evolved on a gentle world where the biggest predator was no larger than a rabbit. They had never known war. They had never needed to. The galaxy was peaceful. The Council protected everyone. But now, as he watched entire cities go dark on his homeworld, Taven realized how fragile that peace had been. The Council chamber filled quickly. Representatives from 40 different species gathered in the circular room. Most of them looked like Taven, small and soft. There were the Pilthans with their 6 legs and fur-covered bodies. The Corrin floated in their water tanks, tentacles pressing against the glass. The Morvek stood on 2 legs like Taven, but their skin was green and covered in tiny scales. None of them looked like warriors. Council Chairman Vorik called the meeting to order. He was a Pilthan, old and wise, with silver streaks in his purple fur. His voice was calm, but Taven could hear the worry beneath it. The Krethic swarm has attacked Valoria Prime, Vorik announced. 200,000 Velans are trapped in the southern colonies. We must send help immediately. The chamber erupted in nervous chatter. Everyone knew about the Krethic. They were a nightmare species, a hive mind that consumed everything in their path. They had destroyed 3 civilizations before the Council had finally pushed them back to the dark corners of the galaxy. That was 200 years ago. Everyone thought they were gone. We should send the Corrin Defense Fleet, someone suggested. A Corrin representative bubbled in disagreement. Our ships are explorers, not warships. We cannot fight the Krethic. What about the Morvek soldiers? The Morvek ambassador shook his head. We have 3,000 troops. The Krethic number in the millions. We would be slaughtered. The arguing continued for an hour. Every species had an excuse. They were too weak, too few, too unprepared. Taven felt his hope dying with each passing minute. His people were going to die and nobody could help them. Then Ambassador Yun Hajin spoke. She stood in the human section of the chamber, a place that most representatives avoided. Hajin was tall by galactic standards, nearly 6 feet. Her black hair was tied back and her dark eyes scanned the room with an intensity that made others uncomfortable. She had been the human ambassador for 3 years, and in that time she had learned that most species were afraid of her kind. Earth can help, Hajin said simply. The chamber went silent. 40 species turned to stare at her. Some looked hopeful. Most looked terrified. Absolutely not, a Pilthan representative said immediately. Humans are from a Class 12 death world. They are too dangerous. Dangerous to our enemies, Hajin replied. The Valens need warriors. Earth has warriors. Vorik raised a paw for silence. Ambassador Hajin, your species has only been part of the Council for 5 years. You have no military experience in galactic conflicts. We have military experience in surviving, Hajin said. Earth is a hostile world. We evolved fighting predators that could kill us with a single bite. We survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars. If any species can fight the Krethic, it is mine. Taven listened carefully. He had heard stories about Earth, everyone had. It was a world of nightmares. The gravity was crushing. The atmosphere was poison to most species. The predators were massive and cruel, and the humans, the creatures that had evolved there, were the most dangerous of all. But Taven was desperate. I request Earth's help, Taven said, his voice barely above a whisper. Please, my people are dying. The Council debated for another hour. Finally, they voted. 30 species voted yes, 10 voted no. Earth was approved to intervene. Hajin sent the message immediately. 3 days later, the Infinite Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Valoria system. It was not a warship. It was a diplomatic vessel designed for first contact missions. But on board were 50 humans, and that was enough to terrify every species monitoring its approach. Captain Han Jiwoo stood on the bridge, studying the planet below. He was 35 years old with short black hair and a calm expression that rarely changed. He had served in Earth's Space Navy for 15 years, and he had seen many strange things. But this was his first real mission as a captain, and he wanted to do it right. Status report, Jiwoo said. Lieutenant Kang Minho looked up from his tactical station. He was younger than Jiwoo, only 28, but he was already one of Earth's best tactical officers. His fingers moved across the holographic controls as he pulled up data. The southern continent is completely overrun, Minho said. I am detecting millions of Krethic life signs. The Velans have retreated to the northern cities, but they will not hold for long. Dr. Choi Yoonji leaned over her console. She was the ship's medical officer and xenobiologist. Her job was to understand alien life, and right now, she was trying to understand the Krethic. The Krethic are parasitic, Yoonji explained. They lay eggs inside living hosts. The larvae eat the host from the inside out. It takes 3 days for the process to complete. That means the 200,000 trapped Valens might still be alive, Jiwoo said. For now, Yoonji replied grimly. Engineer Park Dami spoke from her station. Captain, I am receiving a transmission from the Valen government. They want to meet with us. Tell them we will land in 1 hour, Jiwoo said. Minho, prepare a security team. Yoonji, bring your medical equipment. We need to understand what we are dealing with. The infinite horizon descended through Valoria Prime's atmosphere. The planet was beautiful, covered in crystalline forests that sparkled in the sunlight. But as they flew over the southern continent, the beauty disappeared. The forests were burned. The cities were empty. Black hives covered the landscape like tumors. They landed in the northern capital, a city of elegant spires and flowing water. Thousands of Valen refugees crowded the streets. When they saw the human shuttle land, many of them screamed and ran. Jiwoo stepped off the shuttle first. He wore a simple uniform, no weapons visible. Behind him came Minho, Yoonji, and 6 Marines in light armor. They moved carefully, trying not to scare the Velans more than they already were. Administrator Tavan approached slowly. He barely reached Jiwoo's waist. When he looked up at the captain, his crystalline eyes were wide with fear. Thank you for coming, Tavan whispered. Please save my people. Jiwoo knelt down so he was at eye level with Tavan. He smiled gently. We will do everything we can, Jiwoo promised. Show us where the Krethic are. Show us where your people are trapped. We will bring them home. Tavan felt something he had not felt in days. He felt hope. These humans were terrifying, yes, but they were here to help. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. The Valen Command Center was built from crystalline light. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing maps and data. Administrator Tavan led the human team through corridors filled with frightened refugees. Every Valen they passed stopped and stared. Some hid behind corners. Others simply fainted. Captain Han Jiwoo tried to move slowly, tried to appear non-threatening, but he knew it was impossible. To the Valens, humans were monsters. They were twice as tall, 3 times as heavy, and built like predators. Even Jiwoo's smile showed teeth, and to prey species, teeth meant danger. Dr. Choi Yoonji noticed a young Valen child watching them from behind a doorway. The child's crystalline skin was bright green, the color of curiosity. Yoonji knelt down and waved gently. The child squeaked in fear and ran away. They are terrified of us, Yoonji said quietly. Lieutenant Kang Minho adjusted his tactical pad. Can you blame them? We probably look like walking nightmares to them. Stay focused, Jiwoo said. We are here to help, not make friends. Though friends would be nice too. The command center's main room was large and circular. A dozen Valen officers worked at stations around the edge. In the center, a massive holographic map showed Valoria Prime. The southern continent was marked in red. The Krethic infestation. Tavan gestured to the map. This is where our people are trapped. 17 cities. 200,000 civilians. We have not heard from them in 4 days. Minho studied the tactical data. What kind of defenses do they have? Mining equipment mostly, a Valen officer answered. We are not warriors. We have never needed to be. Yoonji pulled up biological data on her pad. Tell me about the Krethic. How do they attack? Tavan's skin darkened to a deep blue, the color of sadness. They come at night. First the scouts, then the soldiers, then the breeders. The scouts paralyze victims with their venom. The soldiers drag them back to the hives. The breeders lay eggs inside them. How long does someone have after being implanted? Yoonji asked. 3 days. Maybe 4 if they are strong. Then we still have time, Jiwoo said. We can save them. A Valen general spoke up. His name was Korin, and he was the closest thing the Velans had to a military commander. But even he looked fragile, his crystalline body thin and delicate. Captain Jiwoo, with respect, you have only 50 soldiers. The Krethik number in the millions. How can you possibly fight them? Before Jiwoo could answer, alarms blared throughout the command center. Red lights flashed. Screen showed Krethik moving through the northern forests, heading toward the city. They are attacking, Korin shouted. Refugee Camp 7 is under assault. How many Krethik? Minyo asked, already moving toward the door. Scanning now. Approximately 200. Maybe more. How many Valens in the camp? 3,000. Jiwoo tapped his communication device. All Marines, gear up. We have contact. Minho, you are with me. Hyunji, stay here and monitor. Captain, I should go too, Hyunji protested. There will be wounded. There will be wounded here soon enough, Jiwoo replied. Get the medical bay ready. We will bring survivors back. The human team moved fast. Too fast for the Valens to follow. They sprinted through corridors at speeds that would have broken Velen bones. Within 3 minutes, they were armed and loaded into transport vehicles. Within 5 minutes, they were racing toward Refugee Camp 7. Specialist Lee Hyunwoo checked his medical supplies as the transport bounced over rough terrain. He was a combat medic, trained to save lives in the middle of battle. He had served in Earth's Marine Corps for 10 years before joining the space program. He had seen combat in 3 different wars, but he had never fought aliens before. First time for everything, Hyunwoo muttered. Technician Bae Suman sat across from him, checking her communication equipment. She was not a soldier. She was a tech specialist, an expert in alien languages and systems, but she had insisted on coming anyway. The Valens are terrified of us, Suman said. We need to show them we are here to help. We will, Jiwoo said, by killing everything that threatens them. The refugee camp appeared ahead. It was a collection of temporary shelters made from crystalline material. Felons ran in every direction, screaming. Dark shapes moved between the buildings. The Krethik, they were hideous creatures. Each one was the size of a large dog, with 6 legs and armored carapaces that gleamed like black oil. Their heads were all mandibles and compound eyes. They moved with terrifying speed, leaping onto Valens and dragging them down. Open fire, Jiwoo ordered. The humans spread out in a tactical formation that the Valens had never seen before. They moved like water, covering each other, advancing in controlled bursts. Their weapons barked with sharp cracks that echoed across the camp. The Krethik died by the dozens. Human ammunition tore through their armor like paper. The creatures shrieked and tried to adapt, tried to flank the humans, tried to overwhelm them with numbers. It did not work. Minho directed fire with cold precision. Left flank, 3 targets. Right flank, take the high ground. Hyunwoo. Wounded Valen at Building 6. Hyunwoo sprinted across open ground that no Valen could have crossed. Krethik soldiers tried to intercept him. He shot 2 without breaking stride and reached the wounded Velen in seconds. The creature was barely conscious, its crystalline skin cracked and bleeding. I have you, Hyunwoo said gently. He lifted the Velen, which weighed almost nothing, and carried it back to safety. The battle lasted 7 minutes. 200 Krethik lay dead. 0 humans were injured. The Valens who witnessed it could not believe what they had seen. Tavin arrived in a transport vehicle just as the last Krethik fell. He stepped out slowly, staring at the carnage. Human soldiers stood calmly among the bodies, checking their weapons and helping wounded Velens. They were not even breathing hard. How? Tavin whispered. How did you do that? Jiwoo holstered his sidearm. Administrator, the Krethik are ambush predators. They rely on surprise and venom. But humans evolved fighting ambush predators. We learned to fight back. We learned to hunt the hunters. But there were so many of them. There were more of us, Minho said simply. We work together. We communicate, we adapt. That is what makes us effective. Suman approached Tavin with her communication device. Administrator, I need to broadcast a message to your people. They need to know we are not here to hurt them. Tavin nodded slowly. Suman opened a channel to all Valen frequencies. Her voice went out across the planet, translated into the Velan language by her computer. People of Valoria Prime, this is Bae Suman of Earth. We know you are afraid. We know we look like predators to you, but we are here to help. We have fought the Krethik and won. We will fight them again. We will fight them until every one of your people is safe. You asked for help and help has arrived. Trust us. We will not let you down. In cities across the northern continent, Valens listened. Some cried. Some cheered. Some still hid in fear. But all of them felt something they had not felt in days. Hope. Back at the command center, Yunji was treating wounded Valens. Their biology was fascinating and fragile. Their bones were made from a silicon-carbon compound that was incredibly light, but shattered easily. Their blood was clear like water but contained minerals that made it sparkle. They are so delicate, Yunji said to herself. How did they survive long enough to develop civilization? Their world had no predators, a Velan doctor explained. His name was Rennick, and he had been helping Yunji understand Velan physiology. We evolved in peace. We never learned to fight. Then you were very lucky, Yunji said. Earth was not so kind to us. Is it true that Earth has predators that hunt humans? It was true, Yunji corrected. Long ago. We learned to fight back. We learned to make tools and weapons. Eventually we became the apex predator. Rennick's skin turned pale. That is terrifying. Yes, Yunji agreed. But it also means we can protect you. Jiwoo's team returned to the command center an hour later. Taven called an emergency meeting with all his advisors. The humans stood in the center of the room, surrounded by dozens of Velans who watched them with a mixture of fear and awe. Captain Jiwoo, Taven said formally, you saved 3,000 of my people today, but there are still 200,000 trapped in the south. Can you save them too? Jiwoo looked at his team. Minyo nodded. Hyunwoo gave a thumbs up. Even Suman, who was not a soldier, looked determined. Administrator Taven, Jiwoo said, we will go into the hives. We will find your people, and we will bring every single one of them home. That is a promise. Taven felt his crystalline heart beating fast. These humans were the most frightening creatures he had ever seen. But they were also the bravest. And right now that was exactly what his people needed. The southern continent looked like something from a nightmare. The crystal forests that once sparkled in the sunlight were now covered in black organic material. The Krethik had spread their hive across hundreds of miles, turning the beautiful landscape into a breeding ground. Captain Han Jiwoo studied the tactical display from the transport ship. They were flying low, avoiding Krethik air patrols. Behind him sat 20 human marines and 4 Velan guides who had volunteered to help. The Valens were shaking with fear, but they had insisted on coming. They knew the terrain better than anyone. Sergeant Oh Dae-hyun checked his squad's equipment one final time. He was a veteran of underground combat, having served in Earth's tunnel wars 20 years ago. His face was scarred from an explosion that had nearly killed him. He did not smile often, but his soldiers trusted him completely. Remember, Dae-hyun said to his squad, tight formations in the tunnels. Watch your corners. The Krethik are fast, but they are not smart. They attack in waves. Let them come to us. Corporal Nam Jisoo laughed while checking her explosives. She was small for a human, barely 5 feet tall, but she was the best demolitions expert in the fleet. Her specialty was making things explode in creative ways. I have enough explosives to collapse half this continent, Jisoo said cheerfully. This is going to be fun. Try not to kill us in the process, Lieutenant Kang Minho said dryly. The transport landed in a clearing 5 miles from the nearest hive entrance. The humans filed out quickly, weapons ready. The 4 Velan guides followed more slowly. Their names were Pennick, Tilva, Corin, and Jessic. They were all scientists who had studied these caves before the Krethik came. The main cave system is ahead, Pennick said, pointing with a trembling finger. The tunnels go down for miles. We mapped them 3 years ago, but the Krethik have changed everything. Dr. Choi Yoonji approached the cave entrance and scanned it with her equipment. The readings made her frown. The biological density is incredible, Yoonji said. The Krethik have spread organic material throughout the entire cave system. It is like one giant organism. Can we use that against them? Jiwoo asked. Maybe. If we can find the central node, the Queen, we might be able to collapse the whole network. First, we find survivors, Jiwoo said firmly. Then we worry about the Queen. The team entered the caves. The Velans had to use artificial lights, but the humans had upgraded their eyes with low light enhancement. They could see in almost total darkness. The Velans found this deeply disturbing. The tunnels were narrow and twisted. The crystalline walls that once glowed with natural light were now covered in black organic slime. It smelled like decay and something else, something chemical that burned the nose. The Krethik mark their territory with pheromones, Yoonji explained, reading her scanner. They are telling other hives to stay away. Good. Daehyun said. Means we only have to fight one hive instead of several. They descended deeper. The temperature rose. The air became thick and humid. The Velen guides struggled to breathe. Specialist Lee Hyunwoo gave them oxygen supplements from his medical pack. How are you all not affected? Tilva asked, gasping for air. Earth's atmosphere is harsher than this, Hyunwoo explained. We evolved to breathe in environments that would kill most species. This is uncomfortable, but we can handle it. After an hour of descent, they found the first chamber. It was huge, the size of a sports stadium, and hanging from the ceiling were hundreds of cocoons. Oh no, Pennick whispered. The cocoons were made from the same black organic material that covered the walls. They were roughly human-sized, and through the translucent membrane shapes could be seen inside. Velens. Still alive. Scan for life signs, Jiwoo ordered. Minho swept the chamber with his tactical scanner. I am reading 237 living Velens. Heart rates are slow but steady. They are sedated but alive. Get them down, Jiwoo said. All of them. Now. The Marines spread out, cutting cocoons down carefully. Each one contained a Velen, unconscious and covered in slime. Hyunwoo checked each one quickly. No eggs yet, Hyunwoo reported. They were captured recently, maybe yesterday. They are lucky we got here in time. The 4 Velen guides stared in horror at their rescued people. Corin started crying. Jessic fell to her knees. These were their friends, their family, people they thought were dead. We need to get them out of here, Engineer Park Dami said. She was monitoring the structural integrity of the caves. But this chamber is deep. It will take hours to carry them all to the surface. We do not have hours, Minho said, looking at his scanner. I am detecting movement. A lot of movement. The Krethik know we are here. Daehyun immediately positioned his squad at the chamber entrances. Everyone stays calm. We hold this position until the civilians are evacuated. Jisoo, can you collapse the side tunnels? Jisoo grinned. I thought you would never ask. She moved quickly, placing small charges at strategic points. Within minutes, she was back. Charges are set. When the bugs come, I will give them a surprise. The Krethik came 3 minutes later. They poured out of the tunnels like water from a broken dam. Hundreds of them, their 6 legs clicking against stone, their mandibles chattering with hunger. They moved in a coordinated wave, exactly like a hive mind would. Hold fire until they are close, Daehyun ordered. Make every shot count. The Marines waited with incredible discipline. The Velens watched in amazement. How could the humans stay so calm with death rushing toward them? Fire! Daehyun shouted. The tunnel exploded with gunfire. The Krethik fell by the dozens, but more kept coming. They climbed over their own dead, desperate to reach the intruders in their hive. Jisoo now! Daehyun called out. Jisoo triggered the explosives. The side tunnels collapsed with a deafening roar. Tons of rock fell, crushing Krethik and blocking the passages. Only the main tunnel remained open, and it created a choke point. Funnel them through, Minho directed. Overlapping fields of fire. Do not let them spread out. The battle became a brutal rhythm. The Krethik charged. The humans fired. The Krethik died. More Krethik came. The humans fired again. It was mechanical, efficient, and terrifying to watch. Hyunwoo worked behind the lines, carrying unconscious Velens toward the exit tunnel. The 4 Velen guides helped him, moving slowly with their delicate bodies. Each Velen weighed almost nothing to the humans, but the guides could barely carry one between 2 of them. You are so strong, Pennick said in amazement, watching Hyunwoo carry 3 Velens at once. Earth gravity is 3 times stronger than yours, Hyunwoo explained. Everything on our world weighs more. We had to become strong to survive. The fighting continued for 20 minutes, then 30, then an hour. The Krethik kept coming, and the humans kept killing them. Mountains of dead Krethik piled up in the tunnels. Finally, Hyunwoo reported that all survivors were evacuated to the surface. Time to go, Jiwoo said. Daehyun, pull your squad back. Jisoo, collapse the main tunnel. The Marines retreated in good order, never turning their backs on the enemy. Jisoo placed her final charges and triggered them, as the last human cleared the tunnel. The explosion was massive. The entire chamber collapsed, burying hundreds of Krethik under tons of rock. The team emerged from the caves covered in dust and slime. The 4 Velan guides looked at them with expressions of pure awe. "You saved 237 people," Korin said, "and you did not lose a single soldier." "That is what we do," Daehyun said simply. But Jiwoo was looking at his tactical pad. Minho had been scanning the deeper tunnels during the fight. What he found was disturbing. "Captain," Minho said quietly, "that was just one chamber. I detected 17 more chambers deeper in the hive. If each one has 200 Valens, that is thousands still trapped down there. And there is something else," Yoonji added, studying her biological scans. "Deep in the hive, I am detecting a massive life sign. Something huge. I think it is the Queen." Jiwoo looked at his team. They were tired but uninjured. They had enough ammunition for another fight. But going deeper meant going into the heart of the hive, where millions of Krethik waited. "We knew this would not be easy," Jiwoo said. "Send half the squad to escort the survivors back to the city. The rest of us go deeper. We end this. We kill the Queen and we save everyone." Daehyun nodded. "I will take the strike team. Jisoo, bring more explosives. We are going to need them." The Valan guides volunteered to stay and help. They were terrified, but they were also brave. Their people were still down there, still alive, still waiting for rescue. "You do not have to come," Jiwoo said gently. "Yes, we do," Pennick replied. "They are our people. We will not abandon them." The team rested for 30 minutes. They ate, drank, and checked their equipment. Then they turned back toward the caves and descended once more into darkness. This time they were going all the way to the bottom. This time they were going to face the Queen herself, and the Krethik had no idea what was coming for them. The deeper tunnels were worse than anything the team had seen before. The walls pulsed like living flesh. Organic tubes ran along the ceiling, carrying nutrients to the deeper chambers. The air was so thick with pheromones that even the humans felt dizzy. Captain Han Ji-woo led the strike team deeper. Behind him were Sergeant Oh Daehyun and 10 Marines, Engineer Park Dami, Dr. Choi Yoonji, and the 4 Valan guides. Lieutenant Kang Minho had remained on the surface to coordinate with the main force. They had decided to split resources. Half the team would continue rescue operations in the upper chambers. The strike team would go for the Queen. "How deep are we?" Corporal Nam Jisoo asked, checking her positioning equipment. 3 miles, Dami replied, and descending. "The Queen's chamber is another 2 miles down. 5 miles underground," Specialist Lee Hyun-woo muttered. "And I thought the tunnel wars were bad." They passed through 3 more chambers, each filled with cocooned Valens. The team worked quickly, cutting down survivors and marking locations for the rescue teams following behind them. They found another 400 Valens, all still alive, all sedated, but they also found chambers they could not save. Chambers where the eggs had already hatched. Chambers filled with empty cocoons and bones. The Valan guides wept silently, but they kept moving forward. "The Krethik are efficient," Yoonji said, scanning the organic structures. "They waste nothing. Every part of their victim is used. The bones become building material. The organs feed the larvae. The consciousness is absorbed into the hive mind." "That is horrible," Pennick whispered. "Yes," Yoonji agreed, "but it also gives us valuable information. The hive is not just connected by pheromones. It is connected neurologically. Kill the Queen and the entire hive dies. Like cutting off the head of a snake," Daehyun said. "Exactly. The Krithik attacked them 6 more times as they descended. Each attack was larger than the last. The creatures were adapting, learning from their failures. They started using different tactics. They came from multiple directions. They tried to separate the humans. It did not work. The Marines fought with cold efficiency. Daehyun directed his squad like a conductor leading an orchestra. Every movement was coordinated. Every shot had a purpose. The humans never panicked, never broke formation, never stopped advancing. The Valan guides watched in amazement. They had studied warfare academically, but they had never seen it practiced. The humans moved like they were born for combat, and in a way they were. Earth had forged them in fire and blood for millions of years. After 4 hours of descent, they reached the final tunnel. It was massive, large enough to drive vehicles through. The walls glowed with bioluminescent fungus that the Krethik had cultivated, and at the end of the tunnel they could hear something breathing. Something enormous. "The queen is ahead," Yunji confirmed. "Life signs are off the scale. She must be the size of a building." Jiwoo checked his weapon one final time. "Jisoo, where do you want the explosives?" Jisoo studied the tunnel structure with her expert eyes. She pointed at support pillars made from hardened resin. There, and there. Those pillars are holding up the entire chamber. Collapse them and the ceiling comes down. How much explosive do you need? All of it, Jisoo said with a grin. I will set them on a remote trigger. We fight the queen, I blow the charges, and we run like hell. Sounds like a terrible plan, Hyunwoo said. It is the only plan we have, Jiwoo replied. The team moved into the final chamber. It was enormous, the size of a city block. The ceiling stretched up into darkness. The floor was covered in organic material that squelched under their boots. And in the center, resting on a massive throne of bone and resin, was the Brood Queen. She was gigantic. Her body was 50 feet long, bloated with eggs. Her carapace was thick as armor plating. Her head was a nightmare of mandibles and compound eyes the size of dinner plates. Smaller Krethik swarmed around her like servants, feeding her, cleaning her, worshipping her. And when she saw the humans, she screamed. The sound was not just noise. It was telepathic. A psychic blast that hit everyone in the chamber. The Velan guides collapsed immediately, their minds overwhelmed. Even the humans staggered, feeling the alien intelligence trying to crush their thoughts. But humans had evolved with complex brains that could resist mental attacks. They shook off the psychic assault and raised their weapons. Open fire, Jiwoo shouted. The chamber exploded with violence. The Marines concentrated fire on the queen, but her carapace was incredibly strong. Bullets ricocheted off her armor. She roared again and birthed warrior forms from her body. These were larger Krethik, specifically designed for combat. Daehyun immediately adjusted tactics. Focus on the warriors! Ignore the queen for now. The battle became chaos. Warriors charged from all directions. The Marines formed a defensive circle, covering each other's backs. Jisoo placed her explosives while the others fought, moving from pillar to pillar with incredible speed. Hyunwoo dragged the unconscious Velan guides to safety behind a rock formation. He checked their vital signs. They were alive but in shock. Their minds could not handle the queen's psychic presence. Dami worked at a different task. She had brought special equipment, a neural disruptor designed to interfere with hive-mind communications. She activated it, and the effect was immediate. The Krethik warriors faltered, their coordination failing. It is working, Dami shouted. But I can only maintain it for a few minutes. That is all we need, Jiwoo replied. He charged forward directly at the queen. It was insane. It was suicidal. It was exactly what a human would do. The queen tried to stop him with her psychic attacks, but Jiwoo had trained for mental resistance. Earth's military had developed techniques for fighting telepathic enemies. He pushed through the mental assault and fired his weapon at the queen's face. One of her eyes exploded. She screamed in pain and rage. Yunji saw her opportunity. She had been studying the queen's biology throughout the fight. She saw the weak point, a gap in the armor near the thorax where the carapace plates met. Jiwoo, aim for the thorax. That is where her central nervous system is. Jiwoo adjusted his aim and fired. The bullets penetrated. The queen's scream changed from rage to agony. Daehyun and his squad concentrated their fire on the same spot. The armor cracked. Fluid sprayed out. The queen thrashed, crushing her own warriors in her death throes. Jisoo, blow the charges, Jiwoo ordered. Charges are set, Jisoo replied. Everyone run! The team retreated in controlled chaos. Daehyun's squad provided covering fire. Hyunwoo carried 2 Velan guides. Dami carried the other 2. They sprinted down the tunnel as fast as they could. Behind them, the queen continued to scream. She birthed more warriors, dozens of them, sending them after the fleeing humans. But she was dying. Her movements were becoming slower. Her psychic attacks were weakening. The team reached the tunnel entrance. Jisoo stopped, turned, and triggered the remote detonator. The explosion was catastrophic. All the charges detonated simultaneously. The support pillars shattered. The ceiling collapsed. Millions of tons of rock fell on the queen's chamber, burying everything inside. The shockwave knocked everyone off their feet. Dust and debris filled the tunnel. For a long moment, there was only darkness and the sound of falling rock. Then silence. Jiwoo pulled himself to his feet. His ears were ringing. His body was bruised. But he was alive. His team was alive. He checked everyone quickly. Sound off, Jiwoo ordered. Daehyun here. Squad is intact. Hyunwoo. All guides are alive. Dummy, equipment is damaged but functional. Jisoo, that was awesome. Eunji, I am scanning for life signs in the collapsed chamber. Wait, nothing. The queen is dead. She's actually dead. The team sat in silence for a moment, letting that information sink in. Then Daehyun started laughing. It was a tired, relieved laugh. Soon everyone was laughing, even the Valen guides who were just regaining consciousness. Did we win? Panic asked weakly. We won, Jiwoo confirmed. They began the long climb back to the surface. It took 3 hours. They were exhausted, covered in cuts and bruises, running on nothing but adrenaline and determination. But as they climbed, they noticed something amazing. The Krethik in the upper tunnels were dying. They convulsed and collapsed, their neural connection to the queen severed. Throughout the hive, millions of Krethik were dying. By the time the strike team reached the surface, the entire hive was dead. The rescue teams had found and freed every surviving Velan. 1,700 people saved from a fate worse than death. They were weak and traumatized, but they were alive. When Jiwoo emerged from the cave covered in dust and blood, the rescued Valens stared at him. Then slowly they began to cheer. It started as a quiet sound, then grew louder and louder until thousands of voices were chanting the same thing. Deathworlders! 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 Administrator Taven approached Jiwoo with tears streaming down his crystalline face. You did it, Taven said. You actually did it. You killed the queen. You saved my people. How can we ever thank you? Jiwoo smiled tiredly. Just let us rest for a few hours. Then we will help you clean up. Taven laughed through his tears. Even now, even after everything, the humans were offering to help more. These Deathworlders were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. But they were also the most noble. And from that day forward, the Velans would never fear them again. 3 weeks had passed since the death of the Brood Queen. Valoria Prime was healing. The crystalline forests were growing back, slowly reclaiming the land that the Krethik had corrupted. The cities were rebuilding. The survivors were reuniting with their families. And everywhere, humans worked alongside Valens to repair the damage. Captain Han Jiwoo stood on a balcony overlooking the northern capital. The city sparkled in the morning light, its crystal towers reflecting the sun in 1,000 different colors. It was beautiful, peaceful. It was hard to believe that just weeks ago this world had been dying. Behind him, the door opened. Administrator Taven entered, followed by several Velan officials. They all bowed respectfully to Jiwoo. 3 weeks ago, they had been terrified of humans. Now they treated them like heroes. Captain Jiwoo, Taven said warmly, the ceremony is ready. Your people are waiting. Jiwoo nodded and followed them down to the central plaza. Thousands of Valens had gathered. They lined the streets, filled the balconies, crowded every available space. And standing in the center of the plaza were the 50 humans of the Infinite Horizon crew. Lieutenant Kang Minho stood at attention, his uniform crisp despite weeks of hard work. Dr. Choi Eunji was there. Having just finished training Valen doctors in trauma care, Engineer Park Dami was talking with Valen engineers about rebuilding projects. Sergeant Oh Daehyun and his Marines looked uncomfortable with all the attention, but they stood proud. Specialist Lee Hyunwoo had become something of a celebrity among the Valens. Children followed him everywhere, fascinated by the kind human who had saved so many lives. Corporal Nam Jisoo was teaching Valen engineers about controlled demolition techniques for removing the remaining hive structures. Even the 4 Valen guides who had descended into the hive were there. Pennick, Tilva, Korin, and Jessic had become heroes among their own people. They had faced their fears and survived. They wore medals now, awards for bravery that Taven had personally designed. The ceremony began. Taven stepped forward and addressed the crowd. His voice was amplified across the entire city. 3 weeks ago, we faced extinction. The Krethik swarm had come to our world and we had no way to fight them. We called for help, and the Galactic Council sent us the only species capable of saving us. They sent us the humans of Earth. The crowd cheered. Some Velans were crying. All of them remembered the fear, the desperation, the certainty that they were going to die. We were afraid of the humans, Taven continued. We had heard stories about Earth, about the death world that breeds monsters. We feared that we were trading one nightmare for another. But we were wrong. The humans came not as conquerors, but as protectors. They fought for us. They bled for us. They descended into hell itself to save our people. Tavin turned to face Jiwoo and his crew. 1,700 Valens are alive today because of you. 1,700 families are whole again because of you. Our world is free because of you. There are no words in our language to express our gratitude, but we will try. He gestured, and Velan children came forward carrying wreaths made from crystal flowers. They placed them around each human's neck. The wreaths were beautiful, delicate, and very precious in Valan culture. They were given only to the greatest heroes. We name you all Kelverin, Tavin announced. It means protectors of light in our oldest language. You will always be welcome on Valoria Prime. Your names will be taught to our children. Your deeds will be remembered for 1,000 generations. The plaza erupted in cheers. The humans looked at each other, clearly moved. Even Daehyun, who rarely showed emotion, was smiling. Jiwoo stepped forward to speak. The crowd went silent immediately. Administrator Tavin, people of Valoria Prime, we are honored by your recognition, but we did not do this for glory or reward. We did this because it was right, because you needed help and we could provide it. That is what the strong do. They protect the weak. They stand between the innocent and danger. They fight so that others do not have to. He paused, looking at the crowd of small, delicate beings who had survived the impossible. You called us Deathworlders. You called us monsters. And in a way, you were right. Earth is a harsh world. It made us strong. It made us tough. It made us capable of terrible violence. But it also taught us the value of life. It taught us to protect each other. It taught us that strength without compassion is just cruelty. Jiwoo gestured to his crew. These people are the best of humanity. They represent what we can be when we choose to use our strength for good. And I promise you, as long as humans exist in this galaxy, we will stand ready to help those who need us. That is our purpose. That is our legacy. The cheering was deafening. Valens threw crystal flowers into the air. Children ran up to touch the humans, no longer afraid. The ceremony dissolved into a celebration that lasted hours. But not everyone was celebrating on Valoria Prime. High above the planet, on the Galactic Council station, important decisions were being made. Council Chairman Vorik sat in his office, watching recordings of the battle. He had reviewed every piece of data, every tactical report, every testimony. What he saw had changed his understanding of the galaxy. The door opened. Ambassador Yoon Hujin entered along with a new arrival. Ambassador Kim Seonwoo had just arrived from Earth. He was older than Hujin, with gray in his hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. He was Earth's senior diplomat, sent to negotiate humanity's new role in the galaxy. Chairman Vorik, Seonwoo said formally. Thank you for meeting with us. Vorik gestured to chairs. The two human ambassadors sat. Even that simple action was different from how other species moved. Humans were graceful despite their size, controlled despite their strength. I have reviewed the reports from Valoria Prime, Vorik began. What your people accomplished is remarkable. 50 soldiers defeated a Krethic hive that had millions of warriors. You lost 0 casualties while saving 1,700 civilians. It is unprecedented. Humans are good at war, Seonwoo said simply. Earth taught us well. Too well, some would say, Vorik replied. There are species on the council who fear humanity. They believe you are too dangerous to be trusted. And what do you believe? Hujin asked. Vorik was quiet for a moment. Then he stood and walked to his window. Outside, dozens of species went about their business on the station. All of them were small, peaceful, civilized. None of them were warriors. I believe the galaxy has been at peace for too long, Vorik said. We forgot that there are dangers in the darkness. The Krethic are not the only threat. There are pirates in the outer systems. There are slave traders on the border worlds. There are aggressive species that the Council cannot control. We have been helpless against them because we are not warriors. We do not know how to fight. He turned back to the humans. But you do. Earth is a death world, and it produced a species of warriors. Warriors who choose to protect instead of conquer. That is rare. That is valuable. That is exactly what the galaxy needs. Seonwoo leaned forward. What are you proposing, Chairman? A formal position on the Council. Earth becomes the military protector of peaceful species. When threats emerge that we cannot handle, we call on you. In exchange, Earth receives full voting rights, trade agreements, and access to galactic technology. You want us to be your sword, Hajin said. I want you to be our shield, Vorik corrected. There is a difference. Xianwu considered this carefully. We would have conditions. Human forces remain under human command. We choose which missions to accept. We will not be used as conquerors or oppressors. Agreed, Vorik said immediately. We do not want conquerors. We want protectors, like Captain Jiwoo and his crew. The negotiations continued for hours. Treaties were drafted, terms were agreed upon, compromises were made. By the end, Earth had a new role in the galaxy. They would be the guardians, the first responders to threats that others could not face. When Xianwu and Hajin returned to Valoria Prime to inform Jiwoo, he was in the medical center. Yunji was there, training Valen doctors in her techniques. The Valens were fascinated by human medicine, by the aggressive treatments that would kill most species but saved human lives. We are so different, a Velen doctor named Rennick said. Your medicine is like your people, strong, aggressive, willing to take risks. We have to be, Yunji explained. Earth does not forgive weakness. Our medicine reflects that. We fight diseases like we fight enemies, aggressively and without mercy. Jiwoo listened while Xianwu explained the council's offer. His crew gathered around, listening carefully. When Xianwu finished, there was silence. Then Minho spoke. So we become the galaxy's police force? More like the galaxy's fire department, Hajin corrected. You go where the fires are. You save who you can. You stop the threats that others cannot. And we get to choose our missions? Daehyun asked. Always, Xianwu confirmed. Human forces remain under human command. We answer to Earth first, the Council second. Jiwoo looked at his crew. What do you think? I think we did not come all this way to stop now, Dami said. I think there are more people out there who need help, Hyunwoo added. I think it sounds like a lot of work, Jisoo said with a grin. Which means it will be fun, Yoonji smiled. I think we have a responsibility. We have these abilities. We should use them to help others. Jiwoo nodded slowly. Then we accept. We become the protectors. At that moment, alarms sounded across the medical center.